Aaron Peterson.
This is Alice Skye.
This is Dan Sultan.
I'm Deb Malman.
Now I'm Emily Woodamara.
And you're listening to
Jam-Packed.
Hey, what's crack-a-lack-a your mob? It's Johnsy here, and no matter where you're tuning in from this week, from Cairns to Cootamundra, from Wilcannia to Ware, and everywhere in between, I've got you covered with some great music and great yarns right here on Jam-Packed. Now, some of you fellas might have heard about a thing called Men's Health Week, which this year is happening between the 13th and the 19th of June. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why do we need a week to talk about men's health? Well, as men, a lot of people think we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be practical and knowledgeable. We're supposed to be sporty and funny, and we're supposed to cope with whatever life throws at us, right? We grow up as young fellas and young men with this idea that no matter what, we're built to tough it out. But reality can be very different. And that's why we need to focus on men's health. To let fellas know you're not invincible and it pays to look after your health, whether that's your physical, mental or spiritual health. So coming up this week, I've got some great yarns and some great tunes to help you look after all three of those things. A bit later, I'll be catching up with Auntie Marjorie Anderson from 13 Yarn, who'll be dropping by to talk about this unique counselling service for blackfellas.
There is no judgment and there is no shame in ringing 13 Yarn, and no problem's too small. You might have just had a bit of an argument with your girl or your best mate at school or something like that. Give 13 Yarn a ring and have a chat about it, because a problem shared is a problem halved.
More of that yarn coming up real soon. But first, I want to look after you fellas' physical health by getting you up and doing a bit of dancing, and I reckon this one's going to be good for your mental and spiritual health too. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's Warumpi Band with Jalangora Pakarno, out from jail on Jam-Packed.
Jam-Packed!
You've got locked on Jam-Packed, and what a cracking way to kick off the show, eh? That's Warumpi Band with Jalangora Pakarno, out from jail. Hopefully that one got you feeling real good. And that's what this week's show is all about, feeling good. And Men's Health Week is a reminder for all of us to keep tabs on the men in our life to see that they're feeling good, to find out if they're doing okay. Because by comparison with women, more men die at every stage throughout life. We have more accidents, more of us suffer from health conditions that are lifestyle related, and more men take their own lives. In their lifetime, 1 in 8 men is likely to experience depression, 1 in 5 will experience anxiety. But despite all that, we hardly ever visit the health clinic or see a doctor. We don't talk about the stuff that's bothering us, we just bottle it up. And if we start thinking we can't cope, we start turning to other things for help, like drugs and grog. And if you're doing those things to try and mask pain, to try and mask hurt, then they're really only going to make things worse. If you're having a few drinks to socialise, that's fine. But too often, a few drinks turn into a few too many. And before too long, that turns into horrors. No good. So next time you're having a few drinks, choose to look after yourself, eh? Set some limits for yourself and stick to them. Maybe have one alcoholic drink, and the next time have a non-alcoholic drink. Have something to eat before you drink, and even while you're drinking as well. It's just some simple stuff to help you be more in control of your life and more in control of your health. And if you need more info on alcohol and your health, check out the DrinkWise website. That's drinkwise.org.au.
Hey, this is Benny Walker, Yorta Yorta Man, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about mental health. To me, mental health is... I take it as a holistic approach, because if I feel good physically, it helps with my mental health, and vice versa. If I feel good mentally, I've got more energy and those sorts of things. But it can be anything from you're tired for no reason, or for me, when I've ever had battles with anxiety, it's things like I get these feelings of guilt for no reason, or there's feelings of impending doom, but it can show itself in so many different ways. Some people it's just tiredness, or not wanting to do things, or not picking up the phone, not answering text messages, finding it hard to be motivated, or having that short temper or short fuse. It can show itself in so many different ways, and I think that's why it's really important to be mindful when we engage with each other, that we don't necessarily know exactly what each other's going through, and so we need to try and have that open heart and give everyone the opportunity to work through whatever they're working through.
You're listening to Jam-Packed with Johnsy, and that's my Yorta Yorta brother, Benny Walker, with All You Gotta Do Is Call. That's exactly what my special guest this week would like you to do if you need to talk to someone about an issue you might be having. Marjorie Anderson is the National Program Manager from 13 Yarn, and my yarn with her is coming up next.
Jam-packed.
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 Jam-packed with great music.
Wait. Stop. Jam-packed with Jonesy.
Jam-packed.
On Jam Pack with Johnsy, that's a crack-a-lackin', shack-a-lackin' duo right there, eh? That's Paul Kelly and Dan Sultan with Every Day My Mother's Voice. And it's another great track with some powerful lyrics. Every day I make my choice, what to do and how to be. And that's a real powerful message for men everywhere, eh? Every day we have the ability to make choices about how we live our lives, how we react to things, and about the kind of person that we want to be. Not just for ourselves, but for those around us, the ones we love, eh? Around 30% of our health is related to genetics. The other 70% comes down to choices. Choosing how we react to certain situations, choosing to eat better, choosing to get our butts off the couch to get some exercise, choosing to help out a mate and to listen when he's feeling no good, choosing to drink more responsibly, or maybe choosing not to drink too. Whatever it is, always remember the choice is yours and yours alone.
This is Jam-packed with Jonesy.
Rightio, your mum, we're yarning about men's health this week, and this year's theme is building healthy environments for men and for boys. It's all about trying to feel good no matter where you are or what you're doing. But feeling good all the time is a hard thing to do. We all know when we're feeling no good in our head or in our heart, it's tough to know who to talk to. But now there's a special crisis support line which is dedicated just to us mob. It's called 13 Yarn, which is 139276. And earlier this week, the National Program Manager for 13 Yarn, Auntie Marjorie Anderson, was kind enough to make some time out from her busy schedule to have a yarn with me. And despite me feeling a little bit crook myself, this was too important to miss. So I started off by asking Auntie how this idea first got off the ground.
Well, Aboriginal people have been talking about this for decades, as we know, and a few people have started to start a crisis line, but you need so much infrastructure and so much expertise to be able to do it that a lot of the lines just fell over. And so Lifeline Australia worked with some Aboriginal mental health experts and put in collaboration with Gaia Dewey, funding for an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander crisis line. But one of the things that they were insisting upon is that it be self-determined, that it would be led by Aboriginal people. And I started in Lifeline in October last year, and one of the things I really wanted to do was have true co-design. So the first thing I did was started to employ my team, and I've got an excellent team of people. I've got a marketing expert who came on first, and then I worked with her and said, what we need is a brand, and we need to workshop it with the community, and we need to make sure that we've got, remote, regional, urban, stolen generation, LGBTQI, youth, elders. We need to make sure that we've got diverse people in these work groups. And we went in and we said, right, we've got a blank sheet of paper. We want to start up a crisis line. How do you want it to look? How do you want it to sound? How do you want it to feel for the help seeker? And how do you want us to run it? And we let the community tell us what to do.
If somebody's listening in now and they're going through a mental health crisis at the moment, or they really would love somebody to talk to, we give them a lot of numbers. We give them Lifeline and Men's Helpline and 1-800-RESPECT and Kids Helpline, lots of different services out there, but it's not always that easy to call, is it? What do you think, if somebody's thinking, I might give 13 Yarn a try, what do you think they can look forward to?
Look, I absolutely believe that all those lines should be out there and Aboriginal people should have choice. But if they ring 13 Yarn, the experience is going to be very, very different. I worked very closely with the Lived Experience Working Group to make sure that when people ring 13 Yarn, it's going to be a welcoming experience. And when they first come on the line, the welcome message is more conversational than it is. We didn't have a voiceover person do it. I did it. So it's my voice that you hear when you ring the line. And once you get through and you get through to crisis supporter, you can guarantee that that crisis supporter is Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, number one. Number two, they'll understand your cultural obligations. They'll understand your connection to family, your connection to community, your responsibilities. So that's the big difference with Ringing 13 Yarn. You don't have to teach the person who is offering you help all about yourself and your culture to be able to get that help. These people will sit in your space. It's absolutely confidential. There is no judgment and there is no shame in Ringing 13 Yarn, and no problem's too small. You might have just had a bit of an argument with your girl or your best mate at school or something like that. Give 13 Yarn a ring and have a chat about it, because a problem shared is a problem halved. So just give us a call and have a chat. And if you need to be referred to, ongoing services, because we're not a counselling service, we are a crisis line, we'll refer you to culturally appropriate services as well.
Auntie Marjorie, this is an interesting one because you've mentioned clinical support, you mentioned conversational, yarning style. You've also, sort of mentioned there to, just give us a call, sort of check in, and you've made it sound really relaxed and really safe to feel like somebody can call. Do you have to be in a crisis to call your line?
No problem's too small. Look, we've had a few people call because they're lonely. And I mean, that's a sad indictment in our society. But one of the things we are doing is we're monitoring the calls. And then we put up, some social media to say, go and visit your aunt, go and visit your grandmother, go and have a yarn and a cup of tea. Sometimes you get so busy you forget. But no problem's too small. If you're feeling anxious, just ring 13 Yarn. And then that anxiousness might go away. But if you don't ring 13 Yarn and you're sitting in that anxiousness, it'll just become a bigger and bigger and bigger problem. So just give 13 Yarn a ring, have a bit of a yarn, have a bit of a chat, even if you don't need to be referred to other services. You'll feel better when you get off the line.
Stick around because there's more of my yarn with Arnie coming up on Jam Packed.
Time's always catching up, thinking I've left enough for you. See it for me.
You've got it locked on Jam Packed, and that track's called Legacy Part 2, which sees my brother Birds teaming up with the awesome Missy Higgins. You can find that track on Birds' amazing album Legacy. Earlier this week, I took some time out for a yarn with Auntie Marjorie Anderson, who's the National Program Manager for the new crisis support service 13 Yarn. It's a service dedicated just to mob. And with all the talk around Men's Health Week, this service is pretty timely for us fellas. But at the same time, a lot of us have trouble talking to someone when we don't feel good. I asked Auntie why she thinks it's important for us men to start to yarn more and how 13 Yarn can help encourage that.
Look, I was just in a conference in Alice Springs and I had some really senior lawmen up there talking about this very issue of men having to swallow their feelings to look strong. They're now in the community role modelling the fact that you can feel emotions. You can cry in front of people, and that takes strength. To reach out for help when you're feeling down, that takes strength. So we need to get that message out to young men that when you're feeling down, it's okay to show emotions. And that takes strength to be able to do that. That makes you a strong man. And also, if you reach out for help, instead of, taking your own life, that takes strength. So you will be a strong man in your community and you will be respected. And we need to make sure that that message gets out there, and there's no shame with feeling bad. Everybody feels bad at some stage in their lives. It's not something that just you are going through, but we can help you. And we need to make sure that these young men don't feel shame about feeling bad and don't feel shame about needing help. And we need to get those young men to, reach out for help. It doesn't have to be 13 Yarn. It can be to an elder in the community. It can be to the Aboriginal Medical Service. It can be to a counsellor. But reach out for help when you need it.
Auntie Marjorie, one of the things that does make mob feel uneasy about sharing their problems or talking with somebody about mental health or, personal issues and things is the issue of confidentiality, not wanting, the old bush telegraph to get our stories sort of shared through the community and things. How does 13 Yarn sort of help with keeping information confidential and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that is a huge issue in our community. I always say our best marketing tool is the black grapevine. You don't need to spend thousands on ads. You just tell a black fella and then it flies across Australia. But the confidentiality is, and somebody asked me if we'd be doing the line in languages as well, and we won't be doing the line in languages because you could be ringing from Maningrida and get somebody in Nowra. Or you could get somebody over in Bundaberg or somewhere like that. So the line is actually, it can go anywhere in Australia. So that's number one, confidentiality. Number two, confidentiality. You don't have to tell the person on the line anything about you personally. You just have to stand up and talk about your problems and work through your issues. You don't have to tell them anything personal. So the people on the line that answer the call won't know you. All they'll know is that you're an Aboriginal person that needs help. And vice versa. We've had some of our crisis supporters say, I'm from this mob. And I'm saying, no, you don't give away any personal information to the help seeker either.
Now, Auntie Marjorie, you've said something off air which was really interesting, and I'd love to touch on that, and that is that, you're learning, this is a first, this is a world first. You've said you're the national program manager, so you're dealing with this at the national level and obviously the international level too in terms of setting the benchmark. How do you know that the service is good? What sort of data or information or feedback or even experiences that you're hearing from mobs saying, that calling that number was really deadly, or, I had a really positive experience, or, how do you collect data and stuff like that to learn and to get better as a service?
Yeah. Well, one thing about blackfellas is if you're doing something wrong, they'll tell you straight away. and I can tell you the line's been going since March and we've had one complaint, and it was such a small complaint. I actually reached out to the person because they complained and gave their number for somebody to reach out. He was most impressed that the national manager reached out, and it was really around training of the crisis supporters. He was unsure about something, and I just talked him through it, and he was fine and he was great. And I actually met him at a conference later, and he said, oh no, if you complain to 13 Yarn, they get straight back onto it. So I think that's a huge measure. And another measure is there's people going online with our sites and saying, look, I've rung 13 Yarn, I was in hospital, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, I was feeling really anxious and none of the nurses were around, I didn't know what to do, so I rang 13 Yarn. And the person I spoke to absolutely helped me get through the night. It was just great. So they're the sorts of things that we can collect. Because of confidentiality, we don't ask questions, and, I know that people would like to know what age groups are ringing through and what gender and all that sort of thing, but we can collect gender, but not age groups. Unless people want to tell us their age group, we don't collect that information because we don't ask for it. Because we want it to be confidential, and we don't want blackfellas to get suspicious about the line, about us collecting all this data on them. We're not doing that. We're collecting data on the sorts of issues that are coming through, but very wide, very, very wide. And we have done no analysis on the calls yet because we don't have enough of a time period to be able to say where the peaks are and where the flows are and all that sort of thing. And another point I want to make too is there's a lot of smaller crisis lines out there, and I'm all about Aboriginal people having choice, and we want to support those smaller lines. So any of those smaller lines can reach out to us. We'll share our referral directory. We can give them hints. We can support them. So we want to make sure that there is absolute choice out there for Aboriginal people. And we won't be, just because we're a national line, closing down all these smaller lines. I think they're very important as well.
Yeah, good. That's fantastic. A very Aboriginal cultural value there, being inclusive of and having opportunity and choice is so important for mob, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Arnie, before we let you go, you sound like just a wonderful, energetic and positive elder and spokesperson and advocate for us mob. And I'm just wondering if you've got any tips for us on how you look after your mental health. How do you stay positive and stay strong?
Look, I got beautiful grannies that keep me happy. My little one, the youngest one, he's been a COVID baby. He's 2. He actually thinks he works for Lifeline. So when I'm in meetings with Lifeline, he sits next to me and he takes notes, like he scribbles on a piece of paper. And then when I take that piece of paper into the person that was taking minutes and I say to him, here's the minutes that Luca took. He thinks he works for Lifeline. Everybody in Lifeline knows him. He just keeps me strong. I've got 6 grandbabies and they're all fabulous and wonderful. And I do things like, I've got a real thing where I've got to win a meat tray a week. So I go to my local RSL on a Friday night and I try and win meat trays. And you know what? Every week I've won a meat tray. So that's one thing that keeps me happy as well. So getting out with my husband, because I don't get to see a lot of him during the week. So just spending time with my husband and my grannies and my daughter, it's just great.
Oh, thank you, Auntie Marjorie Anderson, who is the National Program Manager for 13 Yarn. Thanks so much for getting on the show and sharing with us your service and all the amazing work that you've been doing. And it's been awesome. Thank you.
And thank you for having me, and respect to everybody out there and all your lands. Ring the line if you're feeling bad.
Jam-packed with great music.
You're listening to Jam Pack with Johnsy, and that's my little Neptune Budgera with his track called Wash My Sorrows Away. And if you're a blues fan in the state of Origin, you might have tried to wash your sorrows away after the loss in Game 1, but no matter what side you're barracking for, if you're going to have a few drinks, keep it cool and be sure to respect yourself and respect others around you. There's a simple message for State of Origin this year: always respect, always drink wise.
Jam-packed with Johnsy.
Jam-packed.
Yama Yama, it's Mitch Tambo here, and you're listening to Jam Pack with Brother Boy Johnsy.
We all have moments in our life we consider to be unmissable. Those moments that are so precious they live on and on in our minds as great memories. Recently, I caught up with Mitch Tambo to tell us about one of his favourite unmissable moments.
A moment for me that will always be lingering on in the back of my mind was when I was able to take stage for the Firefight concert with John Farnham, Olivia Newton-John and Brian May from Queen. And I remember as I took to stage, just looking out and seeing this crowd of over 75,000 people, and this realisation that I was on stage with 3 living, breathing icons and that I was about to sing alongside of them. And there was a part of the song where I walked up this big, long catwalk, and I stood at the end of the catwalk and I started to dance. And as I started to dance, I looked out into the crowd, and it was a sea. We're talking 75,000 people. It was just this overwhelming sense of being out there for that split couple of seconds alone and just saying to myself, wow, this is an unmissable moment.
To remember the unmissable moments in your life, it's important to not let one drink turn into a few too many. You'll never miss a moment if you drink wise. Find out what that means at drinkwise.org.au.
Gotta love Jam-packed.
You're listening to Jam Pack with Johnsy, and wrapping up this special men's health edition of the show this week, that's Baker Boy getting some help from Dallas Woods and Sam by the Great on the track Better Days. I love the line in that song that says, "We standing strong through the dark times because that's who we are." There are some real strong messages in that song, eh? Strong messages for everybody, not just the fellas. If your day isn't turning out like you thought it would, if you're having what you think is a really bad week, if you feel like your life has gone nowhere and despair's driving you to make unhealthy choices, like drinking to numb the pain, then please, talk to someone, you fellas. Have a yarn. You can start small by talking to a family member, by talking to someone who'll listen and give you the respect you deserve. You can have a yarn with someone at your local clinic, or even pick up the phone and dial 13 Yarn. That's 139276. Put that number where you're always going to see it, like maybe on your fridge or even on the back of the dunny door. And of course, if you want more information on how drinking affects your health, check out the DrinkWise website. That's drinkwise.org.au.
This is Jam-packed with Johnsy.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show, you fellas. I hope it's given you mobs some food for thought when it comes to men's health and why we need to keep yarning about it. Not just this week, but every week. Biggest mob thanks to Auntie Marjorie Anderson from 13 Yarn for being part of the show, and big thanks to you fellas for listening. Remember, if you want to check out any past shows, just head to my website, jampacked.com.au, and click the listen button. And I'll be back same time, same channel next week. So until then, stay safe, stay strong, and stay connected. Kalabaya, boom.